The forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
We can all get along, but there's no stopping. Ay, everybody's wrong, that's a real problem. Ay, they don't want to hear it, but they still talking. Ay, soon enough, we running out of options. Ay, this ain't gonna end till it's in the coffin. Ay, we ain't gonna be friends till we try to squash it. Ay, I don't know how we can make amends or we drop it. Snowflakes melt when it's hot, kid.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no, the forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to HeartMind Expressions, Tab 4. I am AlexSpielman. I'm here with the lovely Sue McClure.
Hey, everyone.
And Amária will be joining us shortly. She's just getting off of work, and she'll be joining us as soon as she is good and ready. So, for the time...
And Dr. Alex Bloom, he's in Florida dealing with all the shenanigans. Those you know, there's the hurricane that ran right through it. He's also getting all kinds of I's and T's crossed and I's dotted and all sorts of other things. So, you know, he's been having a pretty busy week.
Yeah, so for the time being, you got us lovely beings here ready for another fine hour of introspective conversation and general hilarity. So, Sue, we're at almost Halloween, and we're noticing that a lot of interesting things start to be happening around this time of day. Whether it is the seeing of different entities or spirits or whatever have you, and they seem to be more prevalent around this time of year than others. As we know, All Hallows Eve is coming upon us, and that tends to be the point in which the veil is one of the times where it's very thin beyond the mortal realms and the realms of the incorporeal. So, with that being said, what's your thoughts on these? Anything in particular?
Well, I noticed that usually at this time of the year, you can see beings that can glide across the room type sounds. All your, what is it called? Different type senses can get heightened at this time of the year, depending if you have the gifts, whether it's audio or visual, a taste or a touch. Your senses can get heightened, and you'll end up noticing any types of beings. And it doesn't always have to mean the dead. It could also just mean echoes of what time has. It could mean even different types of beings, like they're from another world or another dimension. And you may have experienced them in your room. Some of them may be at a poltergeist level, which they will have the ability to move things around. So it just depends. All kinds of shenanigans can happen at this time of the month.
Just like there's many different shades of colors and things of that nature, there are going to be different shades and colors and beings. Both physical, non-physical, extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial. What we have here is just a smallest of snippets of what the universe has for us, and dare I say universes, because in many ways we do have a multiverse. So who's to say, for example, that some of the things that may be wandering around may be just us or something similar to us, uh, of a different dimensional origin or of a different composition. Who knows? We only understand this stuff to just a fine amount. We don't have a whole of it. Just we're barely scratching the surface at this point. And what's I think probably the coolest and fascinating thing is that it's now becoming a focus of things more than it was. Before it was a very taboo and strange topic, and now it's becoming a topic that is much more welcome.
I think some of the effects that we have is also the trajectory and the alignment of our planet. And, that also can give off different types of entities and their abilities. But also keep in mind, we can be entities to them as well. The veil works both ways.
Yep. It's a two-way mirror.
Yeah.
And some people are just good at melding through it. They're able to go through that back and forth, inside, outside, upside down, inside, right side up. A lot of us are still learning that, but some are more proficient than others. And it's fascinating, I think. Now, some of it is gone into the idea of people doing things, for example, paranormal hunts. Well, they'll go to a place that is known for its hauntings, and they will use technology such as EMF detectors and sound recorders and things of that nature, and they will start to record and detect things, and then they'll try to transcribe it into something that we understand it. Doesn't always work, but it's interesting that such a field is starting to be developed. Oh, and as I'm saying, I see our lovely Amária joining us. How are you doing, Amária?
Hey, sis. Welcome.
Long day.
Yeah, I always thought 24 hours was long.
Well, I'm in the flow now again, because how we have ups and downs and all this stuff. I follow astrology very strictly just because it's so accurate. And I guess we're out of retrograde shadow now, because this week I applied for 3 different positions this weekend, and I got one of them kind of mixed up. And I got 2 of them today, and the other one wanted me to go tonight. And I was like, I just pulled a 13-hour double shift. So I am flowing, but it's some hard work.
That's incredible.
So here we go. I've been up since 3.
Oh, wow.
You've been up since when?
Since 3.
Oh, God bless you.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing.
I went up to I'm not going to use the name of my job, but I went up to the resort, because I work at a resort, but they wanted us there at 5, and so we did some banquet stuff. So it was a nice day with that.
Yeah, there's people like Amária that actually can keep the caffeine company in business.
Oh, I don't know about that all the time, but at least the good food people.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Definitely that. Yeah.
Jumping out, buying food.
Yeah, definitely. So we were talking about, thinning of the veil and things. At this time of the month, we have, entities that can kind of work their way through, and sometimes you'll get a little bit of shenanigans that happen. All your, sensories get, all your clairs kind of, get awakened, if you will. And it's a good time to discover if you have any clairs as well, So if you guys don't know what clairs is, clair audio, and what's the one for taste? I forgot. There's hearing, there's audio, there's touch.
I know
So
gustatory
Yeah.
is the name of the sense of
Yeah.
taste, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
think what it
So
would be called.
yeah.
Other
let's
sentient
see.
inspiration just
Hearing,
have a sense of knowing.
Yeah.
Clairaudient is audio, is your
Yeah.
hearing things. Clairvoyant is visual.
Yeah.
Trying to think what the other one was. What's
clarifact,
that?
the Claire olfactory, I think it is.
Oh, it might be.
Claire
I know
olfactory.
in the
The
SSP,
sense,
like
the,
from the memories I've
well,
pieced together,
I know
and just
the sense of smell is called your olfactory system. So
right, the
Claire
olfactory.
Yeah.
olfactory, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Taste. Uh, I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's a very good. That's a good point, Sue. That if you
None of my
are,
clairs are spinning all the time, just
Yeah.
going from one to the other.
what's really funny is that so personally I'm clairaudient,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so every so often I'll be like hearing a conversation. I'll be in a room by myself. All of a sudden I'll be hearing a conversation. I'll be like, "Who's talking?"
Right?
And all of a sudden I'll start focusing on it, and then all of a sudden it gets dead silent.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's almost like, "Oh, he's onto us! Stop now!"
Yeah. I've actually had something similar happen to me, but I also get tones, and I can get talking. I can hear talking in my ear, but it's like either it's in another language or it's whispers, so I rarely can ever
right.
hear or understand what they're saying. Otherwise, I have different sensories, so I have more of the sixth sense, if you will, or the sensory where you feel that there's something wrong or something right, or is someone following you, and there's nobody in the room. So it may look as like paranoia or something, but sometimes when the veil is thin, you will be censoring other people, other beings. And I know it's far-fetched to a lot of people, but sometimes other beings can also mean like fairies and elves and gnomes and unicorns, anyone, as well as all the beings that you know in Greek mythology. You know, there's just people walking among us, and they easily could be beings, creatures, ETs, or whatever. And so when the veil is thin, they can see us, they can hear us, and we can see and hear them as well.
All right, so just to answer that whole thing we had to do with talking about the different clairs.
Yeah.
First of all, for people who may not know this, clair means clear. So having a clear sense of something. So
Yeah.
And one thing I want to add to all of this is we've got documented evidence of V2K, voice to skull,
uh,
tampering with the CIA, and there's other agencies I'm sure that use it. And
yes,
so those visitations, those clairs, it's a really good thing to really truly develop because it's so easy to be deceived. A lot of these V2K things want to get us like fighting and arguing against one another because, well, my God is the true God because he spoke to me, or, well, Saint Michael came to me, and the archangel, or whatever, you know, delusions. I mean, we all have them, and we have to be very, very careful. One of the things that I've really learned, especially working with the other side ever since I was a really little girl, is usually family. I'll trust a little bit more, and you're going to know somebody in your heart. If there's not that heart connection, I would be questioning, who are you? And if they're saying there's someone big or grandiose, I wouldn't believe them, because why on God's green earth is some being like that going to come to people? They don't need to,
Yeah.
because they have the ability and the power that their presence would basically kill us because we don't vibrate that high. So I would be at major, major, major questions. Oh, really? So you're Archangel Michael, huh? Interesting. I have no contracts with you. And if you are a being that is not of the light, not of the truth, and you're trying to deceive me in any way, because I request, and not only do I request, but I demand in the nature of the universal sovereign laws because I have a right to know. Full disclosure, are you really Michael? And you're going to find out really quickly that no, it's not. Because those beings want to get us to we're almost bonded to them. We're creating soul contracts with them. And it's so much easier to get loose from somebody that's agreeable. So very, 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 very careful, careful, careful. It could be like the V2K from the actual military, or it could be some other thing that's trying to deceive. Because even though the scriptures have all been, you know, bastardized and written, there are some truths in there. And then they say, watch out for false prophets. It's on all realms. So we got to be very, 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 very careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just so much as, you know, whether you hear a voice or a divineness or something, but also not just focus on who is saying it, but also
Right.
focus on the message. What are they
Right.
saying?
What's the message? And how
Right.
can
If they
that
tell you to
benefit
jump
me?
off a bridge, I would start questioning, you know? Um,
Or you're
so,
this person from these past lives, and that stuff doesn't
yeah,
matter because we're here and now. We
right.
might have Akashic flashbacks or bleed throughs, and that's okay. You want to write it down? Great. Write it in a journal and then kind of back off and allow whatever you're flowing to flow. I think a lot of times we grab onto things trying to think it's something, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And when it's just like, okay, just relax. And that's the best way to allow flow to happen is when we're able to relax, get out of heightened states, just really truly listen with the heart. And it's going to come to the heart. It's not going to just be mishmash of information. You're going to feel something here, and that's going to be profound if you have a message that's really to help you on your path. At least that's my experience. I mean, do you guys have any experiences with any awakenings? Or I mean, I'm not going to profess to be a guru. I'm just me. I've done some things, I've survived, I'm thriving, and it's a way shower thing.
Yeah, I get stuff all the time. I get, you know, I don't know if you want to call them voices. It's more of feelings. I get a lot of feelings all the time. Like, it's almost like when you have a feeling somebody's going to say something and you already know what they're going to say. So you don't get the
Okay.
word part, you get the whole feeling part after they have said it.
Right.
So I get that. So a lot of times I will get also I will get sensories, just sensories on my skin or whatever when somebody walks by me and there's nobody there. Definitely at this time of the month, I don't own any pets. You know, I love them. I love cats. I love dogs. I don't want to get any hate messages later. I do love animals, but I don't have any just due to my allergies, and I just stay cautious, you know, on the cautious side of it. But I can normally handle it. It just, you know, depends. But at this time of the year, right at this month, I seem to get crawlers on my bed. You know, it feels like a cat or a dog just jumped off on your bed and walked across it.
Oh, yeah, I've
So
had
I will
those.
get that a lot at this time of the month, and I will look and there's nobody there, you know, but I can feel something walk across my bed as if, you know, I do own a cat or a small dog. So, you know, I get those. Definitely. And sometimes I'll get them above my head, like or the upper half of my pillow, you know, or something like that. So it just absolutely depends. That's probably the most noticeable thing that I will get, especially around the month of October. I also get stuff like rearrangements. I got a table behind me, so will have like that's a dinner table, and sometimes things will be rearranged. When I know I put something in a specific arrangement and I leave the room and it comes back and it's a completely different arrangement, I sometimes wonder if that's a message or just, you know, shenanigans. So that's another thing you have to be aware. Sometimes you will have, you know, your ancestors or some family member that's wanting to send you a message. If you notice that some people will have the letters of the alphabet, magnetic letters of the alphabet on their refrigerator. And if there's no one else in the house and a message starts to form with those letters, you know, sometimes that's just family contacting you. So you never know.
That's some really cool experiences.
Yeah.
Well, there was 3 other clairs I didn't mention before, and I think what you mentioned was something interesting, which is called clairtangency, which is the ability to touch. You know, where there's clair audience is hearing, clairtangency is touch. And then the
Interesting.
other two we were talking about, which was smell and taste. Smell is clairsalience, and then taste is clairgustience.
Okay, I was wondering it would have to be like something towards the gustatory. I was wondering how that would be.
Well, yeah,
Interesting. I know I get triggered on different ones just depending on the thing. I've always been really well balanced on all of my clairs, but I guess it just depends on the situation, or even sometimes I'll smell a smell and it'll either bring back memories or it's like I'll have this whirlwind of feelings like, okay, you need to be careful because such and such might be happening, or
I know.
you know, it's so weird. But like even just tasting or smelling something, I've had like warnings. It's like weird, really weird.
I know there's actually a particular scent I will smell, and it could happen anywhere, but it's a particular smell. And the smell I've been able to translate to be the smell of change.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
like, it's a strange and new beginnings. Like I know I'll smell that like at the beginning of when I went to school, the beginning of the school year, or if I start a new job, or if I introduce a new part of my life, I would usually smell that as this is the begin. It's almost like if you're going hiking,
Mm,
right? And you have the blazes on the trees. That's like a olfactory version of a blaze.
that's
Really,
cool.
Wow. That's
That's
neat.
really cool, Alex.
Wow.
Really cool.
and instinct. That's another interesting one.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
there is when they say trust your gut.
Yeah.
That is
Trust your
100%
guts, trust your
true.
vibes. Yeah.
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 There's like it, especially, and this is uh, kind of connect last week to this week.
Mhm.
But people who are also more neurodivergent are very aware of a lot of these things, much more
Right.
than other people, just because of the way the physical interacts with the spiritual and the biochemical and the metaphysical. Um, but vibe checks. Have you ever heard of a vibe check?
Check.
No, I'm not familiar.
All right, so a vibe check. This is what I've been heard it's been called. But a vibe check is when you can walk into a room and you immediately get a
Yeah,
feeling of
vibe check.
who,
Okay.
Yeah.
who where if if the vibes are good, the vibes are bad, who to watch out for, that spider sense, if you
Yeah.
will.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
just wherever I go, I have to do that because, like,
It's
today
almost
had some overwhelming energies at different points, which were weird because certain things, like, there was a text message that was pretty long that I had received from someone. And it's weird because my mind was trying to go back and forth, and I had this disconnect where I couldn't multitask and try to answer questions and process. And then I was trying to set tables and answer questions and, like, can I take your plate, sir? Or, it's like my mind was going, and I'm like, what the crap? And then I was fine after doing some breathing and, breath work. So I'm wondering if sometimes we might hit pockets of energy like that,
maybe.
where it's like
I
we're fine 1 second and then bam, we hit something. It's like, what just happened?
Well,
Yeah.
what's kind of funny is I've been noticing that a lot with my experience going into politics. It's actually very interesting because there'll be some people you'll be like, "You are a piece of shit." Pardon my language. I don't mean to sound very vulgar when I say this, but you get that feeling. Like that's like a gut feeling I'll have in my head. I'm like, "You are a slimy individual." And then there's other people who I'm like, you are the most pleasant individual I've ever met. It's that weird, like you can tell,
Right?
when they say that, when they talk about swamps and they talk about the filth of things, the stench of corruption.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You can literally
that's
feel
true. So
that.
that's somebody having the Claire. What was the
Oh, quick one.
Clear
Clear,
effect. Overacted.
clear
oh my
sadness.
Yeah.
Smell,
like
clear
memorizing
feeling.
a few new
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, yeah. It's that weird
Yeah,
like
swamp definitely smells like sewage.
they
Most
do.
swamps
Reminds
do.
me of the labyrinth with Ludo, and they're in the fart thing, and he's like, "Smell bad." I love that movie. I
No,
mean, come on, we can be nostalgic, right?
but you know what's interesting is that lately, some of the people I've been meeting, people who are trying to get themselves into positions of power, they don't have that smell anymore. They have a very clean feeling, very genuine, very kind, very noble sense.
That's really cool. Good.
I'm noticing that the people who are a lot more questionable are becoming less and less significant.
Yeah.
And the people who actually care and genuine are slowly moving themselves into position. That is not a notion towards me, even though technically, even though I'm running, I'm not. That is not towards me whatsoever. I'm just saying that in a general experience right now. I'm seeing that. Also, I'm noticing a lot more things that are much more erratic. You know, there
Yeah.
was there was a time where things were, they were in control, and so they were very methodical with how they did things. Not so much anymore.
They're kind of
It's
stumbling over themselves.
it's like a guy with a very bad poker face. It really is. You can tell when they are bluffing now, and it's so apparent if you know what you're looking for now.
We must have the nut flush, huh?
Yeah.
I think somebody got the scrubbing bubbles and started cleaning the urinal of life.
Oh my
Oh.
god.
We finally got the toilet unstuck. A while, but
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that's actually the closest thing I've ever got to Buckingham Palace with a royal flush. But anyway,
I was there. I wasn't impressed. The energy was not nice. It was very humbling. There was a lot of deep, deep sadness and just horror. And I'm trying to remember the name of the tower. I had seen the crown jewels. This was like 25 years ish ago, somewhere in there, 1997. Anyway, there's
I,
an area where the queen was beheading people and the heads would roll off into the tombs. And you can see the blood stain is still on the rocks. And it's just like you see that and it's like, ugh, that
you know what?
evil is what we are fighting still. And I think we are finally winning. I mean, it's starting to feel that way.
I think one of the cool things now is we're understanding the idea of contracts. That is such a huge thing. You know, I would say not more than 5 years ago, most people had no idea what the difference between a covenant, a creed, or a contract was.
Do you
And
want to remind the audience really quick what that is, just for any viewers that might be questioning?
what those are?
yeah.
Just a real quick.
So basic contracts. Basic contract is to understand that an act or a declaration or something you have done is basically you are dedicating yourself to something in some shape or form. So that would be one of the big ones that we're learning about is the idea of birth certificates, marriage certificates, and other things of that nature. Those are contracts.
Right.
And even when it comes to work, when you're signing papers, that's a contract. These things are legally binding. Now, you have to understand through this whole discovery process we're dealing with, we're finding out that there are two-tier justice. Now, we're not talking about just corruption and two-tier justice in that aspect. What we're talking about is that there's literally two tiers of justice. There are two codes of law. There is maritime admiralty law, contract law, that is used by governments and religious institutions and other organizations of that structure, corporations. And then you have natural law, natural, universal, that type of law. And that law does not have contracts of that nature. In fact, those types of contracts are considered repugnant or taboo because they would basically infringe upon an individual's free will. Where maritime admiralty, their whole purpose is to infringe on free will. They're supposed to lock you into place. And that is what we're learning right now, is that there is a difference and that there is a particular way that you're supposed to talk and say things because words matter. You know, speechcraft, wordcraft. There's a reason why they're called these things, because you're spelling things. And I know people when they talk about it, they're like emphasizing, you know, we're spelling things. You know, that's when you watch a lot of these videos, they'll be constantly emphasizing these things, but it's important to understand that. Words have meanings. What could mean something that could be very friendly could all of a sudden mean you have swerve fealty to something. You have at that point, so it must be very careful. But we're in the process of breaking a lot of these contracts, finding out a good chunk of them, not all of them, but a good chunk of them are invalid in some shape or form. In fact, I would dare say there are more things that are fraudulent than there are invalid. Now, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I find it very interesting when you kind of do the general learning of these things and what they are and what they do and how they work. So, and if you're able to pull yourself away from one form and return it back to common law, or not common law, because that's one of those other like really kind of catchy things we've been able to deal with, is that common law is its own thing, but it also doesn't really affect natural law. Natural law is its own thing. Common law, a lot of governments use common law, but they kind of put that with admiralty law. What we need is natural. That is the law.
You cut out right after you said we need natural, and then it said that is the law, like kind of faded, and it's been blank or quiet since.
Oh.
It's okay. We get our audio from China, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese or Szechuan. Oh, no way.
I'm having craving for chicken right now. Okay.
But anyways, basically what I'm trying to say is that we're learning about that there's a totally different world when it comes to how the rules are played, right? We thought the rules were played a certain way, and then we found that those laws and rules are not the way they're supposed to work. It's like getting the rules for, say, Monopoly when you're playing Chutes and Ladders, or you're playing Risk when you're actually playing Scrabble, right? You think of it as one thing when it's actually another. So that's a general overview of that. If that helps.
So the different types of contracts that are out there that you were talking about. Um, and I know that some of them can be, taken down as deliberate or bring back to their original form because, they have been changed so many times. Some of
Yeah.
them are completely binding to where you can't change it, and I'm going beyond laminating it. I'm not even talking about that, but I am talking about the wording because if they don't go exactly the way the contract says, you can take them to court and dispute about it. The other is what we call the fine print, and unspoken words as well. So these are just, things that, to look out. And there's a lot of contracts out there that a lot of us don't read, and we put ourselves in a pickle about it. Like for instance, the credit card is the biggest one. When you have a credit card and there's all kinds of crazy stuff they write in fine print, and mostly to protect them, and including all the crazy loopholes that they put in there that
Yeah.
basically make you miserable.
Well, and then the compounded interest and
Yeah,
oh, it gets messy. 'Cause you're paying interest on top of interest, which is like, what? Dude, that's not cool.
yeah.
Well, also, another interesting thing about this is, as I was saying, spelling counts. Spelling counts is ridiculously important. I don't think it just me saying it doesn't give you the magnitude of which I'm trying to say this. Because if you say something or write something a particular way, they can say that makes no grammatical sense and that whole thing can be chucked. Or say you have a proper, if you have an improper, um, what's it called? Font and punctuation and stuff like that, that can also do the same thing.
Huh? Or
If
they can
something's
ask, what does a specific word mean? Because with Black's Law, you could have one word that has 20 different definitions. That's like when Clinton was being on trial, and he's like, what do you mean by that? It's because he understands that part of the law.
there was a
There's,
there if you want to see this in action, uh, there is a very well known deposition that was done by Bill. They deposed Bill Gates, and I believe they were asking him, what were something of the nature of what he was doing with Microsoft at the time, and he said, "What do you mean by the or the?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Define what do you mean by the?" So when you get into like legalese, each word has to work together with one another. If you can't define what that word means in that particular sentence, it's just word salad. It doesn't mean anything.
Very true.
yeah. Well, that's why they call it spell. When you spell, you are doing a spell with the words that you write. And when you put certain groups of words together, it does create a certain type of power, if you will, certain type of ability, perhaps certain type of awakening, if you will, or a certain type of calling. So you do have to be careful. It's the same thing when you have the veil very thin at these times of the month that you have to be careful what you say and what you do because you could be bringing in forces that you may not want around you. So it's one of the things that they didn't teach you in school, how powerful words and spelling can be. And it's the way it is. It's the law of the universe, if you will. It works that way, and that's why it doesn't matter if it's done in a different language. It's the intention that was put behind it.
Oh yeah, and the power of that with the Masaru Emoto's research that he did on the water droplets and
Yeah.
putting the positive and the negative energies and writing words on canisters that were filled with water, like devil or evil or hate, and one of them like love and healing and health and praying over water. And it's fascinating that all of the things that were towards some sort of positive approach had these beautiful, like little crystals, looked like
Yeah.
snowflakes. And then the ones that didn't, they were just sporadic. Some of them were so scattered you couldn't even tell that it was water crystals. Really strange, but very fascinating. Then it definitely reiterates what you're saying on that codex of language
Yeah.
or spelling, like the word bless. I don't
Right.
use that word anymore because if you think of it, you're be less. You're going to be less if you bless, or you're be lessing somebody. So I like to usually say I'm grateful for something, or wow, that was such a gift, or I feel like I've got an abundant flow. So finding more positive words to talk, or like maybe someone might be like, well, why does this always happen to me? Well, because you're asking questions like that. So our
Yeah.
words, our questions, everything that we're saying and doing is so important. Like with what Noah St. John was talking about when we were discussing his book several months ago, affirmations or affirmations.
Yeah.
Our words are going to affirm something.
Yeah.
And so we definitely want to be paying attention to what are those words that we're affirming.
That's why it has to do so much with us, because we are literally, as I said, we are bags of water. We are literally walking around bags of water, and we carry all of these in us. So words mean something when we speak to each other, you know. And if you speak well and you mean well, then it makes the person feel good. The same thing when you compliment somebody. Why does it make us feel good when we are complimented, versus when we are cursed at, So it actually, that's the whole thing about spell and speak and spell, and doesn't even just matter that you write it down. You can just say those things, and so that's why the intention behind affirmation, for example, is extremely strong, because when you affirm something, you're talking to yourself. Especially when you say I. You know, I am happy. I am doing well. I am light. I am love. When you say those things, and remember, now that the veil is thin here at these times of the month here, they can hear you. And so they also have the same rules that we have here on our side. And you can say certain things and it will possibly call upon them. Are you going to call upon those, positive forces, or are you going to be calling on negative forces? And it depends what you say.
Yes, very much. So, when I was going over I went had to read the transcript for the deposition with Gates, right? And he kept on asking, "What do you mean by it?" Right?
Yeah.
The reason he was being deposed was because the U.S. government believed that Microsoft in '98 was a monopoly when it came to technology. And he kept on asking the U.S. government when they were deposing him, "What do you mean by it?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you didn't." And he goes, "Well, you did not mention Microsoft, the corporation. You just mentioned it. What do you mean by it?" And as you read this, the government is saying, "Oh, he's being evasive. He's just avoiding the questions." No, actually, he's not. He's actually being
Yeah,
extremely smart.
very
Because
smart.
unless you have mentioned the specific thing you are doing and specific topic and subject, it can mean anything to anybody.
And that might piss off a judge or a lawyer because they know that you know the law when you start talking that way.
So, like, for example, the best way to, let's say I want to do, let's say I'm trying to make a case against Amária, right? I would have to literally say that this happened at a particular time and she was there. Now, I'm not going to say she because I can say who's she. I'm going to have to say her name, the particular place, the particular time, the particular action, and
Very specific.
what it
Yeah.
caused. Because if we don't do that, then there's nothing here. That's why if you ever watch any legal dramas or watch that, they constantly have to say, "Where were you on December the 5th at 10:35 p.m.?" Because if you don't have that exactness,
Right.
then what are you talking about? We have to lock down the spatial and the temporal. Oh, that's something I didn't know.
I think it's actually similar to like how the Alchemist records are as well too. They have specific date, time, place, everything.
Yeah, very much.
Listed. So when you ask for a specific event, I just want to really draw up a very large file and say, hey, I need the files on yesterday. That's going to be very big because there's a lot of specifics that possibly happened yesterday. But that's why you have to name a specific date, time, and place. And if you wanted something on a specific person or subject, you also have to list that as well. So yeah, it can get kind of brutal of how picky they, want something. When you call upon a certain type of record or a certain type of contract out, you still have to be very specific. And contracts are no different. They will literally be about as specific as heck,
Uh-huh. But as soon as you understand that, dealing with the spiritual realm, when the veil becomes so much more so much more, I want to say easy, that's probably the wrong word, so much more, it's
accessible. It's more accessible.
It's more accessible, easier to use. Well, I didn't want to use easy, but it's much more accessible, because now you know how to lock these down.
One of the biggest things that I do when I do session work is not just clearing people, but making sure that the contracts that whatever entities are around them that have been affecting them have made are canceled. And that's through any timeline. And also, if there's any psychic attacks, does this person have curses on them? Does that need to be taken? Is there a possession to keep in consideration? So, I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, the words that we use. I mean, I know I'm not perfect.
Yeah, well, because there's entities out there that won't listen, and
right.
and I believe you have what's called I think we generally even call it like galactic arrest or something. We have like guards, galactic guards or security that will come and haul a specific entity or spirit away if they refuse to leave, or they violate the law.
Portals, you can use like a Aqua Mother Arc portal, and then close those things. If you notice and you have some gifts that you're feeling into, and you're like, oh, I feel like there's like some sort of portal gate open or whatever. Well, if you have that feeling, it's probably there, and just say, hey, close that thing. I don't want that open. I don't consent, whatever works for you. There's no, you have to do it this specific way. If something comes to you and you feel like you need to do it, it's okay to follow those promptings, and be like, ooh, I don't feel good about this place. I shouldn't go there. Okay, don't. Or, one of the big things that I talk about with people, and there's people that do get offended, and I'm sorry if you do, not my problem, but this needs to be said. Baby witches, stop playing with Ouija boards.
Mm-hmm.
Those are so dangerous. It's not even funny. Like, when I see people like that have luggage that have a Ouija board printed on it, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? What?
Especially the ones who's got the tattoos of those. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's like, if you want to learn something, truly, truly find someone that's practicing. And there's a lot of very good, very structured, witches, whatever you want to call them, energy workers, whatever, it doesn't matter. And, ask them, hey, I noticed that you're really adept at what you're doing. Can I ask maybe how you learned what you did? And I'm just, impressed with what you do. I feel very compelled or called to this. Don't just run off and think, okay, well, cool, magic's fun. Let's just try it. It's actually very, very real. And it is
It can get dangerous. It can get dangerous if you're not playing. Yeah.
That's why these different dark religions use it, because they know how these entities work and these contracts work, and putting them together and opening and closing portals and playing little games and bringing things in. It's easy to bring stuff in, but it's
hard to get rid of them. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
please
definitely.
stop playing those games and just, look for someone that you look up to, that you're like, this person seems really grounded. I'd like to learn about the occult. Start learning from people that you trust. I mean, that's the best way to go. And then maybe they'll oh, I joined this secret group when I was younger, and it was pretty cool, and I really liked the person that was there. They seemed like they were pretty, legit, and it just felt good. If that feels that way, go for it. I'm not gonna judge you if you want to learn those things. They are very real, and you can use them for good. There's a lot of light magic that you can use, or energy work. There's so many things you can call it that truly can help bring good things to our planet, to ourselves, to our loved ones, of course, with permission. Because I also have a thing about praying for others without being asked, because, that's still breaking cosmic sovereign law. We can wish well for someone, but we shouldn't be so much so that we're like, make sure this person is no, it's not our right to say or wish and put on them. So anyway,
Yeah, if you ever want to know, places that you can go, the ones you can look up crystal shops that they sell crystals and things like that. Usually they know somebody that knows somebody, or if they're doing it themselves, and they're the best places to talk, because those who own crystal shop definitely do energy works.
and I've been really impressed with, I know some people may not agree, but I look at the integrity of the people. And the Alpha Omega Order of the Golden Dawn, trying to remember, I know it's like I'm missing something in the name, but David and Leslie are the Imperators, and she's the Witch Queen, or I guess that's how she goes by. But they actually have really good, positive hearts. They do magic, prayers. They use the Christed stuff from different books that are passed down, and they do not do the Aleister Crowley stuff. That's another Golden Dawn. Everything that they do is for the positivity of humanity, to, end the cabal, and let's try to get what we can on getting more love. And it's actually a really positive group. And so if anyone is looking for something that like that, the um, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn Alpha Omega, that's what it is. And they're really cool. So a little shout out to those guys, because I really do like David and Leslie. They're very good people. They do a lot of good in their community in Nevada, and I just like them. I was a neophyte with their group for a while. I backed away because I just decided I really don't want to practice any religion. I just really want to stay very objective about what comes to me in life. Now just really focus on, okay, what's really truly going to be the best for whatever path I'm doing, without having to be anchored into anything in particular.
Mm. Oh, one thing I think needs to be mentioned is know what type of magic you're using,
That's
Yeah,
right?
yes.
There is,
definitely.
and what I mean by that is depending on how it's spelt depends on what it does. All
Yeah.
right. Now your traditional, magician is going to use magic spelled Magic. That's just illusionary magic. You
Mhm.
also have spiritual magic, Maick. That is illusion. That is spiritual magic. You also have magic, Maijic. That's a different type of magic. And then you have the final one, Magik.
Or Magick is
Yeah.
another way.
Well, that was the second one I was saying. But yeah, depending on what type of magic you're using and how it is spelt is very important to know that, because then you'll know what type it is. Because last thing you want to do is deal with magic with a CK when you're meant to do it with just a C, and it's a totally different thing than you're no training on.
And I think it's important to note with that, the training is so important. Like the magic with the CK is what they use in the Golden Dawn. And I would highly suggest taking lessons from the adepts before you actually go, hey, I want to try the lesser banishing ritual, like really study, what is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram? How does that work? How does it affect you? And depending on what direction you're doing the star, it makes a difference whether you're doing it forward, counterclockwise, or clockwise also makes a difference. And so you've got to know those things. And they would have the answers for you and say, oh, you want to manifest something to help you? Cool. Oh, you did the wrong pentagram. Now you're like cursing yourself and kicking
Yeah.
stuff away and pushing it away instead. And so definitely want to make sure.
And
Well,
the
you-
people that actually owns the sporting companies actually know this, because if you notice that the way that you do sports, a lot of it is counterclockwise, and then it's put in for negative energy, and the people at the arena, sitting at the arena watching it, are soaking up these energies that they put in. That's why, you know, when baseball, you run the bases counterclockwise. You know, any type of races, whether it's running, car, horse, that's all counterclockwise. You know, I believe hockey is also going around the ring counterclockwise. So, you know, just keep a watch of that. These are the different types of magics and energy work. I know there's a lot of people have trouble accepting that. They love sports. I totally understand. I like sports too. But, you know, you have to keep an eye on what's going on with these and why there's a purpose of why do you run in those directions when you could easily change the game and do the other way. You know, there's a reason for it.
and like as you were saying, Amária, right? Let's say, oops, you accidentally curse yourself. Well, what you have to do is first you have to reverse the curse, and then you have to do it properly the second time.
Yeah.
Cancel the
You don't-
contracts, clean it up, close the portals. Oh yeah.
Because
So be very careful.
Yeah, it's easier to screw
Don't
up
do it-
than to put back together. So,
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it, it's almost like a double negative. It would just neutralize itself at that point.
yeah.
But yeah, I thought I mentioned that point real quickly before we closed up.
That was a really cool discussion. I like how it tied a lot of different things together that we've talked about at different times and brought some other ideas in to just kind of bring that bigger picture to the whole, or that bigger whole to the picture, or however we're going to say it. But yeah, thanks, guys. I really love the topics that we're getting into lately. I like that we're kind of getting a little more deep in the thinking arena. We're definitely very interesting topics. I like that.
Love it. This is where I thrive. This is my playground here. I'm not a big participant when it comes to the actual practice of these things, but when it comes to actually teaching it and explaining it, that's where I'm good at. I'm not a practitioner. I'm an
You are
educator.
definitely excellent with your educational insight, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh,
And thanks for
anytime.
being here.
Anytime. And I am honored and blessed to have had both of you on this path.
Aw.
So
So here we go. So everybody keep your chin up, and sometimes we hit those pockets of what the fuck just happened, and breathe and okay, do we need to clear things, or is it okay? Is it mine? Is it yours? Whose is it? Sometimes we gotta ask a few questions. Be careful with how we're spelling things and doing things. Pay attention. I need to do more of that myself every day.
An everyday clearing.
Yep.
just
So
a
we-
little bit of a sneak preview. Next week, we're going to be talking about Halloween and all the different
Yeah.
things that are connected to that. So stay tuned. That should be interesting.
Oh yes, I definitely will. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to C4OC Radio Network, Rev Radio Las Vegas, and of course, Kamara Holistic Connection. Thank you guys so much. Love you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Good night.